Hi everyone, welcome to the Cooldown room where we talk all things Formula One. I'm here with Josh Revel, who's just had a drink. So hi Josh, if you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, morning, evening, wherever you are. Josh Revel here, owner of one of the F1 YouTube channels that are way too big for its own good. Just talking all good things about Formula One, and yeah, that's in a nutshell what I do basically. Just talk F1 and somehow getting by with it.
Cool. I may have been pronouncing your name wrong this whole time. Is it Josh Revel?
It's kind of both. It's a bit like if you would ask Charles Leclerc how do you pronounce his name. He's fine with sort of either pronunciation.
Right.
A lot of people say Rebel, and it's just like, well, I'll lean into that.
Okay,
That's what
cool.
I am now. So,
That sounds
but
fancier. So.
either one is fine.
So yeah, you're from New Zealand, obviously. Maybe if you could tell people a bit what that's like compared to the European experience, perhaps. Obviously, it's a bit of a different time zone.
Being a Formula One fan in New Zealand is Dante's 18th level of hell. It is pretty much. I mean, you got to remember as well. Like, I'm into obviously Formula 2, Formula 3, all that stuff. I always watch that, stuff as part of sort of the weekly diet of, what's in Formula One, but also what's coming up to Formula One. And that program would start at about like 7, 8 p.m., depending upon the day. And like it would end basically when the sun's coming up. Like I know for Saudi Arabia, for example, it's either on at 3 or 4 a.m. as the race starts for Formula One. And either side of that, you got Formula 2 and Formula 3 races. So it's just like, great. So you have to shift your sleep cycle completely for those race weekends.
We talk about New Zealand, Australia kind of time zone. That brings us to one of the new rookies this year, Oscar Piastri, who's going to be joining the grid after quite an anticipated wait.
This guy is one of the most anticipated rookies in years. And a lot of aspects scream out similarities with Jan Magnussen's Formula One anticipated debut, which the connoisseurs of Formula One will know didn't really go so well. There is quite a bit to, the fact that he's already, had such a presence already, and he's never turned a lap yet. In a Grand Prix race or qualifying session. The thing ultimately that's going to be interesting is that I don't know if there's been this much sort of anticipation, sort of what's the word I'm looking for? But people are really looking at this kid at the moment, and they're expecting things of him, and he's walking into a McLaren team that's been notoriously tricky to some select drivers. You think, like, no one in their wildest dreams would have thought that Stoffel Vandoorne or Daniel Ricciardo would drown there, but they did, for whatever the reasons may be. So there's no guarantee, but we do know that there's a weight of expectation on Piastri's shoulders. So I'm kind of looking at the whole thing going, how's this going to play out? Like, we just don't know, but it's obviously, like it's probably going to be one of the more interesting aspects, really, of the season, because if he comes in and drowns, it could be viewed as a Formula One bust. But if he comes in and potentially beats Lando, he looks like $1 million. So who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be very make or break for him, and I think he's going to have a lot of pressure, like you said. You mentioned Stoffel Vandoorne and Daniel Ricciardo, obviously two very recent cases of drivers failing to reach the expectations at McLaren. Why do you think that is? Like, what is it about McLaren that you think is causing, like, very good drivers such a problem?
I don't know. Like, there's the thing with motorsport is that there's the official story and the unofficial story.
Right.
So, like, officially, that it could be as simple as they're not getting to grips with the car. Unofficially, there could be things behind the scenes that we're not aware of. I'm not trying to put a tinfoil hat on here or anything like that, but my point is that I don't know if we really know the full story about what's going on there. Only that some insiders were saying things, in Van Dorn's case, saying things to the effect of, "I can't believe what happened there." It's like, well, what did happen there?
Well,
Like,
I'm suddenly putting a tinfoil hat on.
Yes. So it's, like, we are a bit unsure about all of this for sure. Like, I don't know, it seems to be it seems to be, sort of, you're either a hero or a zero when you go to that McLaren team at the moment. So I guess I'm not entirely certain because I never really observed Piastri's driving style, intently. Like, that's going to be one of the more crucial factors for him going over there. It's like, how's he going to deal with the car? Which is, accordingly, it wasn't to Daniel's liking. So,
Yeah.
will it work for Piastri?
I feel like McLaren is a team that at the moment is very Lando focused. I think they very much are trying to keep Lando as their golden boy and, make sure he's potentially in position to win a championship with them in the future. Similarly to what we've seen at Red Bull with them favouring Max, and then we've also seen Red Bull second drivers like Alex, Pierre, kind of fail in a way similar to Daniel and Stoffel have. I guess with these parallels, do you think it's likely that McLaren could reach a level similar to Red Bull and that Lando could be in a position to win a championship?
It depends upon really what they're going to do overall. Depends upon, exactly how much money is going into the development of the car, circumstances, getting the regs right. There's a lot of aspects to this. And then becoming focused purely toward Lando, some people view that as a bad thing. I don't. I'm sort of the person that says, like, if you got someone in there's absolutely world-class driver, and that they could be the world champion if you put everything behind them, then do it. Like, a lot of teams throughout the history of Formula One have done that exact thing. So logically, you would endeavor to do that at some point during the season, obviously. So, yeah, with McLaren, it's a bit different. Don't quite have the funding that the top three teams do. But they're back in the right horse anyway, if they do go down that road. Although, that would have been during the time where Daniel's still there. We're still waiting to see how Piastri pans out. But yeah it's sort of we're sitting here a month away from the green light going out, and we're just all like, oh, what's going to happen?
It's a complete mystery at the moment. I think that's what makes it so exciting, because we just don't know what's going to happen and we can't guess. Like, even with Piastri, we know he's a good driver. He's got the credentials. If I remember correctly, he won Formula 3 and Formula 2.
So he won Formula Regional European, then F3 in his first year and F2 in his first year. In terms of progression, there's not many better junior careers out there, that I can think of. So, like, yes, he may have had the best teams, but at the same time, if you have a look at the drivers who were in those teams, it's like he beat prospects the entire way who were in their second years.
Yeah.
And he came in his debut year and off he went.
Yeah, and it's not easy to do that. I mean, we've seen drivers like maybe Théo Pourchaire kind of struggle to get to grips straight away. And have to take several years. I think he's going for his third year now. And
I mean, it's the circumstances do differ, obviously, because, like, it is a bit hard for Teo to progress if every third lap the engine is becoming overly French. it is
The
somewhat
Alpine
hard.
engine.
It is it is somewhat hard
Yes.
to overtake cars when your engine's going glug, 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 glug the whole time.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, yeah, progress is relative, obviously. Like, I mean, like I said, we were talking about Jan Magnussen there for a second. I remember in his British F3 days, which British F3 back then was the championship. So he was there. He won an absurd amount of the races, and everyone's like, "This guy's the new Senna." Didn't quite work out that way. So Jos Verstappen also had a great junior career, and then came in and he just got bulldozed by Michael Schumacher, ruined his reputation, never really recovered. Van Dorn too. I mean, again, like there's circumstances around all of these. Yes, it's not as clear cut as they came in. They weren't fast enough for Formula One. The point I'm trying to drive home is that there's no guarantees in any of this. So someone who comes in with a bad junior career can hit prosperous heights simply because they either acclimatize well to the sport or they just hit a lucky break, or someone who can have a great junior career come in and hit exactly the opposite to that and just stick the joint up, and 2-3 years later he's gone. But yeah, it's all up in the air. But one thing's for sure is it'll be either extreme. I think for Piastri, he's either going to sink or swim.
Right.
What?
He's going to swim or drown, I think.
Swim or drown, yes, pretty much.
Piastri, obviously, you mentioned his very good junior career. There is something that's a bit different, though, with some drivers. So, for example, George Russell just came straight through, won Formula 2, then went straight to F1. Piastri's a bit different in that he's had to have basically a gap year against his will. And he's not had any racing during that time. Not that I'm aware of. He has been involved with Formula 1. Obviously, we've seen him on the F1 feed. He's been doing some testing and some simulator work. But how do you think his lack of racing in the last year is going to affect him coming into F1?
Not a huge amount. I think just in race trim he might be a tad rusty because you'd be out for a year. It does get a bit noticeable. It's not as if he'll forget how to race, but
needs to warm up a bit.
Well, just sort of remember that it's a standing start, not a rolling start, and things are like.
Yeah.
No, I think the in terms of race trim, 1 or 2 races, 3, whatever, like he'll be sort of in the groove. That's just in general. When it comes to, full on getting to grips with how Formula 1 races are, with any driver, I don't really start giving them crap until about a year and a half, 2 years into their venture. If you go into one FP1 session, you see they end up in a wall and say, "Oh, that's proof they can't drive."
Yeah.
That is completely unfair.
Like FP1, for example, like practice sessions in general, that's the time for the drivers to push the limits. You need to find out how fast can I go into this corner, how late can I brake. Practice is the perfect time to have a spin, to put it in the gravel a bit. Maybe not put it in the wall.
I mean, you are sort of trying to understand whereabouts, the car is that weekend, trying to set it up as well as you can. With the simulations, the data they have from previous rounds at each circuit that they go to, they got so many things where the drivers and teams are prepped as well as they can be heading into a race weekend. In terms of just getting fully into the groove of these circuits, it takes you 3, 4, 5 laps, in FP1 before you're like, okay, I'm about there. Then from there on in, you're like, okay, we're setting up for qualifying and we're setting up for the race here. And you've got 3 sessions to do that, which is challenge enough for the seasoned F1 driver.
Yeah.
When you're coming in trying to learn a lot of this stuff, it's a bit more tricky.
Yeah.
Um,
And a matter of
but
knowing
yeah,
what to say to get the most out of the car as well, like knowing exactly which points to highlight. Someone like Lando is obviously going to be a lot better at communicating with the team, while someone like Oscar has to learn all of that on top of learning just everything about Formula One and getting back to grips with the tracks. And obviously he'll be going to a lot of new tracks he's never driven at before.
well, that's the interesting thing, though, isn't it? Because Alpine took him to a lot of those tracks last year before he and Otmar had that massive fit. You know,
Yeah.
before that, they were taking him to all these tracks that he's never driven at before, and put him in a car that just got him race prepped, or at least got him sort of familiar with, like, okay, the breaking point into the hairpin at Red Bull Ring is here, as opposed to an F2 car, which is halfway down the road. Sort of understanding how the car pivots, exactly how to, how to maneuver it, stuff like that. It's not quite as easy as plugging in F1 2022.
Yeah.
Although the differences in between those ones, at least in real life, the damn car doesn't crash on you. But yeah, like, I think, it won't be as difficult for Piastri to get to tune with every aspect as opposed to other drivers, because the prep has been there. In terms of testing times, stuff like that, apparently he's been on the pace or faster than other people in the team at both. I know at Alpine. I'm not sure about McLaren, because he did do the Abu Dhabi Young Drivers Test, did he?
Yes, I think he did.
Right. And I think the times were decent there too.
They let Oscar go to McLaren so that they could have a spot open for Gasly from...
And
they did a bit of a merry-go-round situation, so basically everyone was where they needed to be, as far as I remember.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I remember someone telling me that at Alpine he was faster than... it was, at the very least, the times were impressive, so that's good.
Yeah.
So, look, everything seems to be there for him to be successful. The only problem is that, like I said, he's just got a weight of expectation on his head now. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
If he was coming into, I don't know, any scenario, it doesn't really matter which team, but if he was coming into Formula One with a teammate that wasn't Lando, I don't know, say someone like Esteban Ocon, just someone completely random, do you think there would be maybe less pressure on him? Do you think it's going to be like more of a problem for Oscar that he's got someone so talented as Lando that he's up against?
I don't think so, because I think, one could argue that having Lando as a teammate may lend sympathy to him in case results aren't quite there. Whereas, like, I know we were just talking about random drivers, but you go up against Ocon. Ocon's dude who's mad underappreciated at the moment.
I completely agree.
he took the fight to the Lord of the Eyebrows, and that guy's destroyed more careers than anyone I've ever known. Like Alonso is the Aaron Rodgers of Formula One, and like, if you're going up against him and you can compete against him and you can really get on his nerves, we know someone else who did that before in the past is Lewis, and we know how high a regard we hold Lewis. So going up against Ocon, not as appreciated as Lando, but you're going to have just as hard a time as if you were going up against him.
But without the appreciation, really, for what you're doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you were to be slightly drowning against Lando, people would be like, oh, well, it's Lando, Like, talented kid, one of the best drivers on the grid. We can understand that. Against Ocon, probably not going to be as friendly a reception. Yeah, it does depend. I think, going up against any one of these 19 other drivers, you would get a different challenge. If you were to go up against Albon, it would be tough, but he wouldn't try to beat you into the ground mentally if you went up against, say, Max or Lewis or any one of just the world-class special drivers. Good luck. So they do present their, different challenges for sure.
Yeah.
I think Lando probably does fit into that category of like, I want to be world champion, and I realize to be world champion, you can't be one either. So,
Yeah.
like, probably won't be. I mean, I'm not saying there'll be hostility, but it won't be a case of here's my data, for example. Just here's my setup. Take my setup. It won't be quite as simple as that.
Yeah.
So again, I'm rambling on a bit, but
It's okay.
I think overall having Lando as a teammate probably not as much of a burden as some people may think it is. But as I say, no such thing as a free lunch. It will still be tough for him.
Yeah, that was really well explained. Thank you. So you mentioned Albon actually there. Let's talk about another rookie this year, Logan Sargeant. He's coming into Williams. Honestly, I don't know a lot about this guy. I've seen him race in Formula 2. He seems decent. How do you think he's going to fare against Albon?
He's really going to push him. And I hold both those guys to high regard. Like, I remember people were lost in confidence for Albon in 2020. And
trust me, I know.
Yes. And the whole time I'm like, look, his form's not good right now, but this dude can drive. Like, something that's actually very interesting about this Williams lineup is, I don't know if people have actually tapped into it. As far as I know, or I'm assuming, this is the only F1 team on their grid right now that has 2 world karting champions as their drivers.
Ooh.
So,
okay, I didn't know
it's an
Sargeant
interesting
was one.
Yeah. Sargeant won the CRK Junior Championship in 2015. Wow. I should know that stat because I'm doing a video on him right now.
Ooh, okay.
So, like, the thing is with Sargeant is there are a couple of aspects which I'm a bit uncertain about with regards to I'm not certain on race pace. There's something that's kind of lacking. What's not lacking is 1 lap pace. And as anyone knows, you look at his junior career and boy, special over 1 lap. I think he got the most pole positions in F3 in his Prema year, more than Piastri did. I'm assuming, I'm probably wrong, but he was always fast. I think he always outqualified his teammate, and I hold Liam Lawson to high regard, which is rare for me to rep a New Zealand driver. But I hold him to a high regard. I think Liam's special, and I think he's New Zealand's best prospect for years. But in F2 last year, if you were to ask me who was better between he and his teammate Logan Sargeant, I don't like spelling out the answer. It's Logan is a mighty quick driver. I think some certain Insta posts probably don't give him much of a liking to some people. And I understand that. But trust me, I do. But I try and especially with the platform I have, I try and make sure that I view everything as just how they are as racing drivers. And how Logan is as a racing driver is he's bloody fast. And so in terms of an American driver who has come in with the most potential, I haven't seen someone this good in American Formula One come in as much potential full time. I should preface that because Alex Rossi way deserved a better shot than he ever got at Marussia. But Michael Andretti came in with a lot of expectation and floundered at the feet of Senna, which you can make your minds up as regards to what happened there. But before that, it was Mario Andretti. It's humongous gaps for Americans in Formula One.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're having to go right back into history for
Have
this.
to go right back because you had Mario, you had Eddie Cheever, who sort of was the weirdest American in the world in that he pretty much was Italian. Then you had Michael Andretti, who, he was IndyCar champion. He was regarded as one of the fastest drivers in the world in pure pace. He was beating his father in the IndyCar scene. I'm forgetting how to say Indy there. Then he came in and just didn't quite get to grips with it. Him not wanting to live in Europe probably had a hand in that. Also having a hand in that is that they had Mika Hakkinen in the reserve drivers. They're like, we like this, kids. Then they got rid of him. We didn't have an American until Scott Speed, and that went extremely well. Then after Alex Rossi and now Logan Sargeant, it's boggling how we never have American drivers, in the sport. But what we do want is one that's fast, that gets in based on the merit of their results.
Yeah.
And Logan is that guy. He's a quick guy. So I don't think Williams have a lot of excuses this year, You could say last year that Albon was still sort of getting into the groove, a little bit rusty. Didn't really show that.
His appendix blew up. Yeah. We'll let him off.
Yeah, he almost died. Yeah, and you can also say that they also had the added handicap of having Latifi as one of their drivers, as evidence when Vries came in and got points immediately. But this year, Albon, who's now in with Williams, understands the team, understands the car, is race ready, obviously. And Logan Sargeant, who's going to be coming in and wanting a point to prove and full of that red, white, and blue patriotism and all that other stuff. Williams have got a very exciting prospect of team on their hands here. Yeah, I think Logan's probably going to be. Logan will probably throw up a surprise result or two, this year. So keep an eye on him.
Yeah, and
got huge reps in him.
I think it's important as well. He's quite marketable at the moment because F1 is obviously trying to expand to the American market. They're, free races this year in the US. So having an American driver on team is obviously going to attract a lot of attention, especially with this big new audience coming in. So I sense he's going to end up having quite a lot of fans with this new fan base. And then if the time comes where he's leaving Williams, that might potentially get other teams considering having a look at him a bit more because he's going to have more hype around him. He's going to have more support. So that's definitely something to consider as well.
Was it 2020? We had three rookies that year, and it was
19?
It was 20, I believe.
Who were the rookies?
21. Sorry, 21.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
Did we?
And we went into that season, and we sort of thought about how those rookies were going to do.
Trying to think who the rookies were now.
So we had Tsunoda, Mick, and the other one. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
I think if when we went into that season, what did we think Yuki was going to do? I think a lot of us had high expectations for him. I was erring on the side of caution because he had great years in F3 and F2, but in the two series that he had where he was direct teammates with Liam Lawson, Liam won the battle. I'm not trying to say Liam should have been in there or whatever the heck. It's just that I was like, okay, what's going on here? And so he came in that first race, he did bloody well. But I kept on hearing his best rookie in years. Like, calm down. It's one race, mate. Yeah. So you got to give these rookies some time for sure. But again, you think of the expectation that Yuki had going into that year. And where he is now, where he's into his third year now. And if you ask the general consensus, people around are saying that he's effectively driving for his seats. Like, I don't think we would have been thinking that would have been the case. So it's a total unknown as to what's going to happen. And personally, I thought Mazepin would at least put up a fight. Not in that way. I realized what I just said.
I mean,
but like, it's, you know, like, but he came in and there were just things that were that Mercedes test could not teach him.
Yeah.
And completely floundered. And started blaming the equipment, which every racing driver does, but it's just like it was just finding new things to blame about why he's not up there. And I think, you know, if I would look back on how I thought those rookies were going to do in 2021 and how they actually fared, totally different to how it actually played out. So that's why when I look at Piastri and Sargeant, I'm like, I'm not going to jinx these kids.
Yeah. I think as well, you mentioned Mazepin not really putting up a fight. It kind of sucked for Schumacher as well because it felt like that was almost a wasted year for him. He didn't have a teammate he could learn from, realistically.
Yeah.
He didn't have an experienced teammate at all. It's not like they were at the same level and could kind of learn off each other. It's not like he had anyone to look up to. He was just kind of thrown into this back marker car, no opportunities to overtake, basically just being lapped every race. I basically count last year as his rookie season, like his proper rookie season.
It was strange.
Yeah.
Like it was a very strange thing to do to chuck two rookies in. Like, I think they probably had the mindset of, this is the last year we're going to have this car and we've already effectively driven it last year. We can get away with it.
They didn't.
It did not pan out that way. It was a strange thing to do, but probably was more an indicator of just how much they needed the money. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't look at Gene Haas with very glowing eyes compared to Michael Andretti, for example. But yeah, like I said though, sometimes you are dealt a hard hand in Formula One.
Yeah.
Like circumstances just differ. So who knows really how either of these guys are going to do. I'm just giving my best sort of, my best guesses. None of us F1 YouTubers have a crystal ball. If we say we do, we're lying. But yeah, we could just use past form to sort of give us the best guess as to how they're going to do. So I guess for Sargeant, like I said, he'll be good. He'll prove his worth. Piastri, I can't decide, but it's going to be either extreme. So...
And that leaves us with the last rookie coming up this year, Nick de Vries.
Oh. I almost forgot about him. How did I almost forget about this guy?
Well, yeah, he's short. Maybe you didn't see him.
Oh, I definitely saw him. I saw him the week after I called him Nick de Vries.
Oh.
So I frauded my way into the Spa Grand Prix paddock.
Oh my goodness.
And we were there courtesy of the Aston Martin Formula One team. Ironic, given my past dealings with the Stroll family. And I was just thinking, okay, I'm in the Formula One paddock. Last thing I want to do is see someone who I've slandered. Namely, Lance, Big Daddy, or Nick de Vries. Walk into the Aston Martin motorhome. Nick de Vries is right there.
Oh no!
I'm like, hey!
It's like, hey!
It's just like, this is unbelievably awkward.
Did he recognize you?
Given the expression on his face, when I told him what I did for a living, he either didn't know what YouTube was, or he knew what I said. So it's either one of them. But I guess, might as well get into it here.
Okay.
His Williams drive was fantastic. I know he did the FP1 session for.
I did want to say actually,
was it Aston?
You mentioned Latifi and Monza. I do want to say Monza was like Williams' strongest track of the year, basically, in terms of because they had a lot of straight line speed. And I'm forever upset that Alex Albon did not get the chance to race in that race. Like that could have been big points. Because if De Vries, who's just stepped into the car, could pull off, was it 9th? Like, imagine what Albon could have done.
I mean, yeah, he was pretty race fit though. Nick,
Yeah.
he did a lot of running. He did the FP1 session for Aston,
Yes,
I think it was.
he did several for different teams, didn't he? Well,
Yeah,
at
but for that,
Monza,
round, he did do FP1 as well. So
yes.
it wasn't as if he was coming in greener than goose crap. You know, he sort of understood where the braking markers were, how the track conditions were. You know, like, is there a new bump at the second Lesmo this weekend? Like all that stuff. So yeah, it's went a bit better than probably should have. I'm not too sure it was an indicator of, you know, the Williams pace, so to speak, but probably more an indicator of just like Latifi, just as much as the guy's nice, like not cut out for it. I don't know, but you know, still, De Vries getting a shot. I'm not overly crazy on the dude, but he's, you know, in the one test that he had to prove his worth, he did it, you know? So,
yeah. And I think
even though I'm hearing Marco's got a bit of buyer's remorse, seeing as how he looked up the Wikipedia article for the Abu Dhabi F2 round, it's like, oh, Liam won a race. It's like, yeah, you didn't see a season where his engine kept on blowing up, and you're looking at the last round results, and now you're seeing that he could drive. I don't know, like, it did seem a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to sign him in some respects.
Yeah.
It does sound like it's another edition of the Josh Ravel Sour Hour, and that Liam did not get the role.
Oh dear.
But like, still, he's there, and I think if anyone in that team's got to be fearing for their seat, it's more Yuki than Nick.
Yeah, I would agree.
You know, Nick's got to have a chance to prove himself here. AlphaTauri don't particularly favor either driver, so benefit of not really, you know, having any conflict there.
It's going to be a really interesting pair at AlphaTauri because you've got Yuki, who's younger, less experienced in terms of racing in general, but more experienced in F1, against Nick De Vries, who's, you know, Formula E World Champion, Formula 2 Champion. He's got other racing credentials, but it's just a matter of how that's going to translate to Formula 1. And I guess I should mention as well, his Formula 2, I guess, field wasn't that competitive. It's not like he had much competition then. There were a few good drivers in there, but nothing like what maybe George
2019 was the championship year. 2019, who was vice champion that year? That was Latifi, I believe.
Off the top of my head, I would say Latifi, yeah.
It was. So,
it
says enough about that field. Yeah, like, it will be interesting to see how it all goes. I don't know. It's unfortunate. He's such an afterthought of all these three rookies, unfortunately.
See, for me, he's the most exciting one.
It's like, to me, compared to these other two, he's the afterthought, which means he'll probably end up being the most impressive rookie this year.
Yeah. Yay!
Generally how that works.
I met De Vries last summer, just before the London E-Prix. They had a meet and greet in London, and I happened to be in London a day early for the E-Prix, so I was like, yes, let's go. I'd not met the guy before, and I had a pack of Haribos, and I thought, oh, I'll give them to Nick, and he loved it. He got so excited, and he was so nice to me. Like, he was just so kind and friendly, and ever since then, I've just been the biggest De Vries fan. Not necessarily for his racecraft, because I'll admit, you know, he's a little bit aggressive sometimes. You know, he has a bit of he likes to send it sometimes a little bit too hard. And honestly, I was so convinced he was going to crash at Monza in the first corner. I thought he was just going to send it too hard and take someone out and embarrass himself, but he didn't. Because that's another thing. Formula E, you can get a bit, you know, you can push and shove a bit. You know, it's something you can actually do there. Formula 1, very open wheels. You know, it's not that. The cars are a lot more delicate.
It is a different style of driving, especially on those circuits of Formula E. You do need to be aggressive. You do need to sort of assert yourself there. In Formula 1, totally different. No, they're two totally different styles of driving and racing. So, yeah, like I don't know. There's nothing wrong with a bit of aggression every now and
Yeah.
again. Just don't brake test people.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's going to be interesting though, seeing how his almost different skills are going to. I don't know the word, but how it's going to mesh with the rest of the F1 grid. Like, he's going to be more aggressive probably, and maybe a bit more risky, and that could just as easily pay off as it might not pay off. So, you know, we might see some crashes that are completely his fault. We might also see some absolutely stellar overtakes. So it really could go either way for De Vries, which is exciting. That's why I'm so excited. And I think AlphaTauri is just such an exciting pairing this year because, you know, Yuki's kind of fighting for his seat. De Vries is fighting to, like, establish himself. It's kind of complete opposite stories, and I'm just so excited to see how it's going to go. So, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there are some exciting. I don't know if there's any one driver on that grid right now that I don't think actually deserves to be there. And I say that knowing what I've said before about Lance, but at least he's sort of, he's competent. You know, yeah. I think is a nice way to put it. He's competent. Apart from that, there's a lot of world class talent on that grid right now. A lot of really damn good drivers. So, yeah, it's nice to be able to look at the grid and be like, I don't really have a problem with any of them.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely. And I think that's why it's going to be really interesting to see how everyone does, because it's not like we have a cannon fodder driver, if that makes sense. It's not like, oh, just get that one out. It's going to be very much the Hunger Games kind of situation. Someone's got to go at some point. Who will it be? I guess we've pretty much covered everything. Is there anything else that we might have missed that you wanted to bring up?
I don't really know. Like, yeah, no idea. I guess anything that is in my mind, I just say for my own predictions video, I guess.
Okay, I'll ask you, do you have, non-related to anything we've talked about so far, do you have a spicy prediction for this year in Formula One?
Yes, Lance Stroll going to win another race.
He's not won a race,
no.
has he?
He's technically won a Grand Prix, the New Zealand Grand Prix.
Oh,
it's a Grand Prix. No, okay, like legitimate prediction.
Yeah.
Leclerc will be world champion.
Ooh, okay.
This time he will.
All right. Well, if that happens...
before Max wins 25 out of the 23 races this year.
Roll back the footage. No, I won't use it against you, I promise. But if you get it right, I will definitely give you credit for that one.
You heard it here first.
You did. Maybe F1 YouTubers do have a crystal ball after all.
Oh, no, it won't go that far. No way. It's just all down to pure blind luck.
Okay, my spicy prediction, don't laugh at me, please, is that Stroll is going to beat Alonso in the standings.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. That is...
Yeah.
that is interesting, but although...
You can see the logic. Kind of.
I don't know. He's had multiple failures with Honda engines. He's had multiple failures with Renault engines. He's going in with Mercedes engines. Maybe make it 3 for 3.
Woo!
Who knows? But yeah, like I don't know. Lance is a little bit underappreciated. I mean, he's not fast, but he is an underappreciated talent. Yeah. And yeah, so who knows? I said George would beat Lewis last year in the standings, even though if you would have asked me who the better of the two drivers is, it's not George.
Yeah.
I just said he'd beat him in some way, shape, or form, and he did. So who knows?
That's the thing, you can never tell until it actually happens. I guess just excited to see how it all plays out now, and I will definitely watch this video back after the season and have a good laugh at us, and how we tried our best to predict. And surely to our future selves and everyone who's seen the season who might be looking back on this video, I apologize for these predictions. But, you know, we may also have got some things right. Take a shot in the dark, you'll eventually hit some targets. So
Exactly.
yeah, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Do subscribe to Josh Revel, you probably are already. So subscribe
If not,
to me
do
instead.
so.
No, exactly. Subscribe to him, subscribe to me, and be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed it.